Hi everybody, today I am going to continue with the Praxis of the Philosophy, part 3, and the question is, how do we deal with a projection of false ideologies? How do we deal with projections? Now that we know what projections are, and for those to refresh your mind, your memories, is that projections are beliefs that people have in certain ways that they project their inadequacies or their belief systems of what they think of themselves as wounds onto you. So in other words, in your family cycle or in friend circles or in perhaps you have your own platform, whatever it is, either way it is based on a psychological principle, you could call it like that. I would like to just call it simply false ideologies projected onto a person, in which you are able to seek out, you are sensing these feelings, specifically if you're an empathic person. How do you know what is a projection of false ideology onto you? How do you deal with that? Most of the important thing is how receptive are you to these feelings, these things that just come out of nowhere. And especially we're looking at why you are feeling the way you do. So before I can explain that, I have to explain to you what a fallen reality mindset is, because it is a type of mindset or a belief system. We have people that are focused on wanting to build themselves. We have people that are focused on seeking out the ability to connect themselves to what is authentic to themselves, what is kind, what is loving, what is beautiful, what is nurturing, what is healthy, whatever you want to call it, in your diet, however you want to look at it. And then we have people that are much focused on the demise and the destruction and the apocalyptic events that are happening, that they are continuously being bombarded with, and they then project their inadequacies or their fears onto you. How do you differentiate what it is that you feel? Now, I've explained it to you right now in an objective perspective so that you're able to see, yeah, I do like to have a veggie garden, I have my own water source, I have my own this, I have that, I live in a community that's X, Y, and Z supportive, blah, 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 or not. If something happens, I can call so-and-so and this person will come and help me and fix my tire if I'm a single person or if I'm in a vulnerable space, whatever the case may be. So now you're suddenly finding yourself, especially if you're an empathic person. So again, like I say, the material of the philosophy is really for the people that are essentially wanting to build themselves, wanting to help themselves. And I have said, as I've said before, that it's called the Praxis, which means the practical application of how the philosophy operates. As of yet, and I can tell you that right now, there is no other type of philosophy or religion or any particular belief system that is emulating or is like the philosophy on this channel. And I can say this specifically because the philosophy has been coming on for many years. So besides the fact that it's old and that it's being in practice already because of the channel existing on the premise of the philosophy, on the praxis of the philosophy, I can say that you are for sure already within the philosophy, and I am explaining it to you in a much more clearer way. Like I said, the bite sizes. Okay, so people tend to catastrophize or contribute, let me say 90% of most of the cases that have been presented in the material realm. The material realm is susceptible to a lot of thoughts that go into it. So you actually have a thought formation or thought manipulation, a type of soft or gray type of mind control, not only coming from the usual suspects, but also coming from those that are around you, that are keying into those things slowly but surely. They don't want you to help yourself because, it's like the crabs in the bucket trying to prevent anyone from getting out of the bucket. But we all want to get out. We all want to live in a better world, but we don't want to get out. We don't want to get out of that struggle mentality. So that is an ideology of the belief system of a particular program that has been projected into the system. It's really simple as I'm explaining it to you. The system tends to look after those that are so wounded, specifically that are believing that things need to be in a constant state of breakdown and disruption and destruction. So the focus on the destruction is because person A is a self-destructive person. They tend to live in the self-destructive space where they don't give themselves a chance to heal. They will, when they're sick, go out in the cold or in the rain and go and do something else, do something innocuous to make themselves feel worthy. So it's about self-worth versus zero self-worth, which is already another ideology for you to understand. Are you a person that has conquered the conditions of your past? Have you cleared all the contracts of your past? Have you removed all the wounds from your childhood? Have you really gone into a deep healing process where you were able to literally observe yourself with absolute true honesty and reality that yes, perhaps you did feed into the narcissist's abuse of you as a parent back in the day, or as a partner, or whatever you want to call it, boss, work circumstances, it's irrelevant really. And what was it that you fed from? What was it that you felt you wanted to achieve? Did you feel you needed to be acknowledged as a victim? Did you feel you needed to have the response to you for what you have been able to achieve for yourself? Or did you really feel unloved, and because you were feeling unloved, you really sought out to make sure that everyone knows that you were unloved as a child, and you sort of brought that into your into experience of your ideology. And so those are the type of things, those are ideologies that people feel when they look at you while you're driving your car and you're going towards the shopping center or whatever it is that you want to do, that you're going to do your mundane thing while you're pouring water, tending to your garden, and someone says, I hate you because you are just too fucking happy. You're just not a person that I wish to have around me. Why are you so effing happy? Why are you so hopeful? There's nothing to live for. You should rather just die. Like me, we all should just die and fall down into the ground and, become ostriches or whatever. Again, those are projections of ideologies that people believe in, that they have within themselves, that they project onto a person such as yourself who has healed those aspects within themselves. And so if they come up, how do you know the difference when they come up? How do you know this is now yours, you suddenly slip down, or this is now something that is related to, I don't know how to deal with this. Suddenly I feel extremely depressed. I mean, I was happy 5 minutes ago, and suddenly I feel like I could just literally take myself out of existence. That is a projection coming from someone that thinks about you in their wounded state. So you sense their wounded state of energy, of thoughts, as if they are yours. And this is specific to people who are empathic, people who are such as yourselves. And you'll be surprised how many empathic people exist in the world. People don't understand the meaning of the word empathy. Empathy means you feel emotions and love and happiness from all of your entire vessel, from all of your entire existence. So that emotional energy is your protective shield. It is also that which makes up your energy field. We will talk about that in the next one, about the energy fields, so that you understand. So energy fields can really become emotional constructed walls of protection as well. But again, we'll talk about that a little later. So people tend to catastrophize or architect their own demise so that they are able to feed their wounds. Number one, the system tends to these wounded people much like a structured demise or a carnival of lost souls. I call it that. It can be observed in many ways, shape and form, as I've just given you a few scenarios, particularly when you are aware of the old stories that that is the most strongest form in the foundation of this reality of this material world, that there is always some wounded aspect to the system itself. There's always some wounded aspect, and this is why so and so X number of billions of people need to disappear, because the world is in a wounded state. So that is a belief system on a bigger perspective projected onto people. Okay, because people are empathic by nature. You can get malevolent type of empathy as well, where there's an association or an identification with certain things that are based on malevolence as well. For example, negative draws negative and so forth. I don't need to go into that. I think you kind of know this by now. So the realization in itself is that in one form or another, one is essentially also taking part, if you don't clear yourself from your wounds and your fears, into the feeding festival that the Leviathan, which is an archetypal word for a big fat snake, is devouring its tail. It's devouring its tail, meaning it's devouring the story, the tale of the two cities, the tale of the two eyes. That which is in the center is the third view, the third center, the third vision. And you see that the snake, the Leviathan, is devouring the entire story all the time. People contribute to feeding the Leviathan their stories, meaning the Leviathan can be seen as a projected type of proto-idea of a woundedness in itself. This, thus, is the proverbial serpent in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The two eyes, the cities, the two cities. Okay. So if you are able to, if you want to get out of that thing, that devouring itself thing, that idea about the snake eating its own tail, because that's what it's about. Falling for all the stories online, falling for every kitty, dog, and whatever movie that's online, continuously being absorbed by this Leviathan entity, which is just, as I said, an archetype of a way of how people believe in things, that it's primordial, it's old, it's always been in existence. Like I said, I think it's time for the human existence to actually grow up for a change, because it's still the same old story over and over, the same old snake eating its tail, the same old ideas, the same way that humans become predictable in making it easier to be able to really mess with your mind, to basically mind fuck you, or mind fuck this congregation, so that because they don't know, because they're so stuck in the old story. Now that is also part of the wounding, of course, of the entire human existence in itself, but then that is kind of why we are here on this Promethean channel, because this is the information that helps you to not become part of that mundane, slithering snake. So essentially, what you need to do for yourself is to be able to focus on who you are. Always coming back to seeing yourself in a new way of being able to take note of your original self, that you are someone that likes to tend to your garden, you wish to build a lot of things up, you actually care about your family, you care about your friends, you are a loving person, you don't have to go and give $5 or £5 or €5 or £5 to a person in the street. You contribute to the construction of your personal self, because when you do that, your energy extends out and becomes in support. You can go and give your 5 pence to whomever it is that you see in the street if you wish to do that. You can also focus on the love for your family as well. I'm saying you have to use your discernment. I'm not saying don't give to beggars. I'm also not saying give to beggars. I'm saying focus on the priority of where you place yourself in your household, in your family, with your people, your friends, your family. If you don't have family, then of course go ahead and do what you wish to do. Donate or do whatever you do. That is based on you. That is where you place yourself. It is your gratitude in which you do this. You don't do this because you feel sorry for the person. You do this because you say thank you. Thank you to yourself for being able to have the ability to do what you've just done for another person. Show thanks. Show gratitude. Say thank you. Say thank you, I see you. Meaning, thank you, I see myself. Because remember now, like I said to you from the very beginning of this video, of this third chapter, is that you are an empathic being. You see that which is around you. You feel that coming at you. You can feel people sending bad thoughts to you because they're thinking about themselves as bad people and using your face as a mirror, because I'm so bad, why can't I be as good as you? So in other words, it's like a backwards sort of jealousy sort of thing. So in the same principle, if you say thank you to another person, if you show thanks, if you show gratitude, you are already seeing yourself in a different light. You are already in a new perspective. You are already in the first step for self-care, which becomes self-love. Like I said, if you do something good for yourself that is healthy, that is obviously not in overkill or in out of balance, then you are able to apply that gratitude to become something that actually gives back to you. So in other words, there is another example of how you put yourself into a new light. And this is not even touching on the deeper aspects of the mind, body, soul, or spirit. This is just human nature that actually needs to adapt to that way of existence. The world is always going to feed the Leviathan. The Leviathan is always going to look for the stories, look for its tail to devour. Remember that, because that is part of the ideology of the way that the material realm is existing as of now. But it doesn't mean that you are taking part in the snake looking for its own tail. You are taking a step back and practicing objectivity and able to focus on things that are of a much deeper, more authentic aspect. I'm not saying you must also focus on becoming a monk or a nun to go and live in a forest and don't bath and live as if you're some sort of exalted martyr. I'm not saying that at all, because that is definitely how you are definitely feeding the snake its own tail. You actually help the snake feed its own tail by doing that, because martyrdom, suffering, and struggling are all aspects that weigh the frequency down. It doesn't give you the option of actually getting anywhere else. So your frequency then drops to a lower point, where you then become the suffering martyr that is then now venerated as some sort of saint after you've passed away. And based on that principle, now you're sort of exalted, but that's for the human endeavor. That was only for those to see for the human endeavor to see. It did nothing for you unless you wanted to go through that process and believed that if you suffer and you have nothing and you live like a pauper and you don't bath and you don't eat and you live like that, I don't know, gees, whatever you want to call it, in the forest, that is your way to salvation, then that is your belief system. I can tell you right now that that is the inversion of salvation, because after you've passed away, you are then in a position of needing to come back to do the opposite of that exaltation that you think that you seek, again, for human endeavor purposes. You should not seek to have something like that, and then do X, Y, and Z to try and get there, because that is a way of inverting yourself in the frequency. The original creative force is not something that even the story about the Son of Man, or Christ, or Jesus, or Buddha, or whoever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, a person of certain status that represented a certain ability or a frequency. Let me say, everyone has the ability to do that. You don't have to just be that person or live in that person's shadow, because you live in the inverted egg. You live in an inverted space. You live down space, because that person followed that belief system. I'm not saying what the person is saying is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, unless you really want to go and get yourself crucified, then go for it. Go do that thing if you want to do that. But what I'm trying to say is those are things that are related to, for people to see. It is for a show. It is an audience that requires to see suffering so that they can see, that they feel venerated, that that person had died for them, so that they feel they are saved. Again, that is a form of projection. Keep that in mind, that it is exactly the same thing. I am showing you what a good person I am. People, please see how good I am, because I'm giving so-and-so donations to this charity and that charity, and I can buy myself into heaven. And if you can see me suffer, then that means that I've done this for you. I've done this for you. That is a projection again. So keep that in mind. My pantomime was just not to offend anyone, but I was just merely giving you an example. Don't become triggered by that, please. We are all mature adults here. And so I leave this with you. Basically, the nutshell of part 3 is to be able to step away from polarization by being true to yourself. It's the same thing. It's the same message. I'm going to give it to you in a few ways. You're going to be able to find that in a few ways that it makes sense. It's the most logical way of approaching it in a metaphysical manner of speaking. So I will leave this with you, and there is no need for any sacrifices to take place for another person. Will you prove to your husband, who has now passed away, that you love him so much that you'll jump into the grave with him and leave your 3 kids behind, type of thing? Don't do that. Okay? That is not a way of helping yourself, especially if you pass away in that frequency. You come straight back, because there is, if you've lived with no choice, then you will return, because you've had no choice to decide not to enter through any particular doorway. So if you are not that aware that you actually do experience the cause and effect after passing away, after being a piece of no good, then there's one way to find out, not so. And you will find out when you come back, and you will be reminded of your actions in the next life, or even before you come here. So there won't be a memory wipe, is what I actually think, because karma is set in stone quite radically right now over the last few months. Many of you have noticed that as well. So I'm leaving that with you. I hope this has inspired you in some way. Please let me know down below your thoughts on it and your comments and so on. Anyway, thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye.